Good morning. This is Jeff Orrock, National Weather Service Office in Wakefield. This is a special recorded briefing for severe weather expected Monday, March 16th. We'll just go ahead and jump right into it and talk about the severe threat for tomorrow. There is a little bit of a severe weather threat here, just of isolated stuff Monday morning, maybe late Sunday night. But really the biggest risk is going to be on Monday. So we're going to talk a lot about that, and also potential gale conditions coming up here, really for all the Chesapeake Bay and the coastal waters. Before we actually get into the severe threat, let's just kind of look at the weather pattern really fast so we kind of understand what's going on. This is actually this afternoon here on Sunday, and you see a warm front to our south with high pressure offshore. So just increasing southerly flow, no issues here for the most part today. Though as this warm front lifts north, we will see some showers and storms developing along this warm front, and that's why there is a little bit of a marginal risk for maybe an isolated severe storm over parts of North Carolina and bleeding a little bit into southern Virginia. And that's because that warm front is going to be lifting north later this evening. This is about 8 p.m. This evening. As we get into about midnight tonight, you see that warm front is well to our north. Maybe just a few isolated showers and storms, but the main show, the big front, coming across Kentucky, very powerful system, a lot of dynamics. By Monday morning, it's starting to make its way into far western Virginia, and so we have really deep southerly flow starting to increase here, maybe some showers and storms developing ahead of the front, especially in the east, where there's going to be a little bit more probably instability, especially in the morning. But then as you get to about 8 p.m. here on Monday evening, you see how fast that front goes from the western part of the state, and it jumps all the way to the coast here by about 8 p.m. on Monday. And so as this thing moves through, we're going to see some very significant storms developing ahead of the front, and also some strong, significant to severe storms along the front. And it's going to move very rapidly from west to east across the entire area. And by Tuesday morning, everything's offshore, and obviously the event's going to be over. So mainly a Monday event. This is the risk here through sunrise Monday. So got that marginal risk here on the far left there. We talked about that isolated severe weather, maybe get a rumble of thunder, maybe a gusty damaging wind or so, but it should be pretty isolated here late Sunday night and early Monday morning. The real threat kicks in on Monday itself, and a lot of the areas in a level 4 out of 5 for potential for severe weather. The main threats are going to be really high, severe damaging winds, and also the potential for strong tornadoes. So we'll get into that a little bit more here for Monday, and then on Tuesday, with everything offshore, there is no severe weather expected. So focusing now just on Monday, again, the area in red is at a level 4 for a moderate risk of severe weather. Again, 4 out of 5. So we're talking about long-lived, widespread, intense storms. Be careful with this red line. It could extend a little bit further to the east here and get into parts of Hampton Roads. Don't look at this line and say, well, the storms are going to be weaker east of that line. That's not necessarily so. It's just they have to draw the line somewhere, and it looks like the threat may decrease a teeny bit, but it's still very significant. You're talking 3 out of 4 in Hampton Roads. Everybody else in a 4 out of 5. As far as the threats, we're talking about some pretty significant damaging winds. The confidence is very, very high. We'll talk about that, maybe hurricane force winds. The hail potential, while there's going to be some large hail out there, it's the lowest of the threats. And the tornado potential is actually now a 3 out of 5 as well. So we're going to have to watch out for this potential for very strong tornadoes. And the minor flooding potential is actually, there is no flooding potential expected. So storms will be moving too quickly. There's high confidence in storm coverage, and I'd say there's medium to high confidence in the storm intensity. So breaking right into it, kind of breaking it down for all the threats. Again, tornado threat is very significant. The potential for strong tornadoes, so we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth here in a minute. The wind threat, we really have the highest probability that we can have as far as the potential for damaging winds. And the hatching also means that the winds may be in excess of 70 to 75 miles an hour. So maybe some widespread, very extreme damaging winds, and we'll talk more about that. The hail side of the things, there is definitely a hail threat everywhere, but notice it's not as significant as the other two threats. The hatched area represents hail maybe 2 inches or greater, and that hatching is really way down in North Carolina. It's not far away. It might bleed up a little bit more into our area. The hail threat could increase, but as far as right now, the threat to life and property, damaging wind and tornadoes are the main concerns right now. So let's just focus on the tornado threat. What does all this mean? So the colors are the probability of tornadoes. So you can see the entire region is at least in the yellow, a 10 to 14% probability, which that gives us the enhanced risk. We have this area in red with an even higher probability of tornadoes, and everything is hatched. And so all these little lines and hatching you see basically means that there's potential for strong tornadoes. And this is EF2 or so or greater with winds of 111 to 135 mile per hour. So that's our main concern. Not only is there potential for tornadoes, but because there is so much shear in the atmosphere and so much spin in the low levels, storms could produce, not only tornadoes, but they could produce some sizable tornadoes, some strong tornadoes. The timing of these tornadoes, if we do see them, really from about 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. And we'll talk about that in the radar here in a minute. But there's this window on Monday as early as 1 and running to about maybe 7 p.m. or so, maybe as late as 8 if you're along the immediate coast. But we're thinking 1 to 7 is our best timing for the stronger tornadoes. There could be an isolated tornado that occurs maybe earlier than this and maybe a little bit later than this, but this is the timing we think where we're going to see the best atmospheric conditions for strong tornadoes. The confidence is high in the widespread coverage of severe storms. And I'll show you that on the radar. Pretty much all the models are developing storms. I'd say there's medium confidence right now in strong tornadoes, which that's why we're in the red area here, kind of that medium confidence, which when you're talking about confidence for strong tornadoes, that's significant. That's nothing to slouch at. So the fact that we have some median confidence in strong tornadoes, these could also be long track tornadoes, got to take it seriously. Be on guard, know your plans, and be ready to put things in place if things are coming through. Just to give you an idea of the impact of strong tornadoes, these high-end EF1s, EF2s, so strong tornadoes are capable of severely damaging even well-built homes. Now, folks taking cover in the right places at the right time, a lot of structures, like well-built homes, are going to be perfectly fine. You're going to be able to take cover. The house may be damaged, but you're going to be fine if you're taking cover in the right place, that interior room, pantry, closet, hallway, whatever it is. These type of winds are capable of removing roofs off of homes. Now, these winds do destroy mobile homes. So when you start talking about, EF1, especially into EF2 potential tornadoes, it's complete destruction of mobile homes. So be aware of that, that mobile homes are not safe at all in these types of tornadoes. The other thing we can get into is a lot of widespread falling trees. A lot of big trees getting snapped, uprooted, and falling trees become a really big danger. So again, you want to hide from the wind as much as possible. Just realize this confidence in strong tornadoes, we got to watch out for this Monday, again, 1 to 7. The damaging wind threat, again, this is no slouch either. So we are actually, in a high confidence of seeing potential damaging wind and widespread damaging wind. And we'll show the radar here, the forecasted radar here in a minute. So when we talk about the confidence levels, we're in basically to 60 to 74% probability, which is very high for our area. And even areas to the east of the highest probability, still 45 to 59%. So pretty much the entire region has a high confidence of seeing potentially widespread damaging severe wind. Now, again, you see all this hatching that's going on across the entire area. What does that mean? Well, that means that we're in the potential for significantly severe winds. So we're talking about potential for damaging winds of 70 to 75 miles per hour or greater. So this is hurricane force wind. This is not your typical 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gust that comes out of a garden variety severe storm. The potential for widespread severe wind of hurricane force or even greater than hurricane force is really the primary threat. And we've got to watch out for this. Again, the atmosphere is primed for both very severe wind and also for strong tornadoes. A lot of times when the atmosphere is set up a certain way, it's set up for both. And that's the way it looks like it's going to be on Monday. Now, the best timing for this extends from about, I'd say, 12 p.m. until about 8 p.m. So as the storms push in from the west, right around noon or 1, they're definitely going to see that potential for strong damaging winds with that line of storms, and it's going to progress from west to east across the area from about noon till 8. Now, there is going to be more than one round of storms possible east of I-95, and we'll talk about that. So again, and now the confidence, there's high confidence in the widespread coverage of severe storms. And there's high confidence that we're going to see maybe potentially some widespread wind damage in this as well. Now, what do winds do at this intensity? These damaging winds are capable of causing significant roof damage, blowing in windows, overturning mobile homes, and uprooting and snapping large trees. So even the straight line wind at this intensity can still cause a lot of problems with mobile home type structures. It'll flip them over, it'll roll them when you get into winds like this. Well-built homes are going to be able to take the wind, but we're still going to see, if you get hit by about 80-mile-an-hour wind, that's still going to cause significant damage even to well-built structures. So again, hiding from the wind. Your house doesn't care if it's being hit by high wind from a tornado or if it's high wind from basically straight line wind. The house reacts somewhat the same way. So you always want to hide from the wind, take shelter in that interior room, bathroom, closet, or hallway on the lowest floor. So just be aware that when these storms come through, we could see a lot of widespread, very strong or severe damaging wind. Now, it's going to be just a windy day in general, so I just wanted to highlight that. Nothing too I'm not going to harp on this, but it's just going to be windy all day ahead of the line of storm. So just realize that wind gusts pretty much area-wide are going to be gusting into the 30s and maybe even to the low 40s. So very windy, very breezy day. Go ahead and start securing all those loose objects outside, trash cans, anything that might blow around, because it's just going to be flat-out windy on Monday ahead of these storms. So let's just try to kind of get into this a little bit with the timing. You kind of see here just kind of these snapshots from noon to 1, where early in the day, late morning to early afternoon, we'll see these storms maybe developing, along and east of I-95. These are going to be moving from southwest to northeast, and so there's a severe threat here with these late morning, early afternoon. Again, damaging winds, maybe an isolated tornado with these. And then the line is already developing to the west here. You see between noon and 1. And somewhere between 2 and 4, it starts to push into basically Farmville, up here towards Louisa. Be careful with the exact location and timing of this, but you get the flavor here that there's still some isolated storms going on in the east here, but now this line's setting up from the west. And this line is going to move very rapidly from west to east, from about, I'd say, 2 to 4 until about 5 to 7. Should be east of I-95 by about 7 o'clock, and probably reaching the coast maybe by 8 o'clock. Storms could start to develop a little bit later. The timing of this is not exact, but you're getting an idea of the flavor of this. I'm going to step this through time here using the simulated radar tool here. Let me see if I can get my tools. Here you go. So this is sitting right around 3 a.m. in the morning on Monday. So, maybe just some isolated showers there along the coast. What I wanted to show is a little bit of a wave here moving up over northeast North Carolina about 5 a.m. Monday morning. So there could be a few little hit and miss showers and storms here early in the morning on Monday. And those kind of move on offshore. They do kind of keep redeveloping here near the Sound, 7 a.m. Here's 8 a.m. Still some stuff popping up here over parts of Hampton Road. So just kind of showing you there may be some showers and storms even early in the morning. And some of these could have gusty winds with them. And they kind of keep on going at about 9 a.m. or so. Moving ahead in time, you're going to see this next wave coming here about noon. Kind of develops right along I-95 and then kind of pushes east here. And so we're going to have to watch out for these. These could be severe storms early in the afternoon. These could actually have a little bit of a tornado threat with them as well as damaging winds. So you kind of see this first round developing along and east of I-95 really early Monday afternoon. And these kind of continue across the area through about 2 o'clock. Here's 3 o'clock. They kind of just keep redeveloping here. So that's why we talk about multiple waves. But somewhere right around, let's say 3 or 4 o'clock or so, the timing may not be exact. It could be, give it an hour here or there either side. But you definitely now see the flavor of this line of storms that's starting to develop west of I-95 that's pushing out of the mountains, starting to get its act together once it gets off the mountains. And this thing's going to continue to organize. And so you're going to start to see some pretty widespread severe weather, very severe damaging winds, potentially strong tornadoes with this line as it comes across. And as it continues to move across, you kind of see it just kind of develops here. Be careful. The southern end of this line may not weaken the way that it's showing here. This is by about, let's say, maybe 6 to 7 in the evening. It's basically right along and east of I-95. Again, it could be a little bit sooner. It could be a little bit later. But you do see the development that kind of, it will start to redevelop here on the southern end of this line and push across northeast North Carolina. So want to be careful with that it looks like it suggests that maybe it's going to weaken down here. Reality is it might not actually weaken. on the south end. It may continue on. And then this is actually 8 p.m. here where you're seeing those storms redeveloping here, and those are going to move across northeast North Carolina. Again, could the storms already be to the coast by 8 o'clock? They might be. Could the storms be kind of in this area by 8? We'll have to wait and see the exact timing of this. But once it gets going, it's going to move very, very, very rapidly from west to east. And there's going to be multiple rounds of severe weather along and east of I-95. So just be aware of that. I do want to show this. This is actually looking at what's called our significant tornado parameter. So this is kind of a conglomerate field that looks at the atmosphere to see where might we see significant tornadoes and what's the timing of that. And I'm actually using a pretty high value, greater than 3. So to give you an idea, greater than 1 suggests tornadoes. When you're talking about a significant tornado parameter of 3 or greater, you're talking about strong tornadoes. So this is the probability of strong tornadoes. So this is in the morning at around 8 a.m. And these are those storms developing here over eastern Virginia, northeast North Carolina. So even then there's a low probability of seeing some tornadoes there, but the probabilities aren't super high. As we push through the morning hours, you do see, this is actually by about 10 o'clock, you still see that parameter there a little bit over parts of I say north central Virginia here, where maybe there could be some probability here of some tornadoes in the morning. As we push through the afternoon, we get to about noon here, you definitely see that area over North Carolina starting to light up with the blues. You start to see the higher probabilities here by noon. By 1 o'clock, now all of a sudden you see those higher probabilities. Let me get to 1. You see those higher probabilities all of a sudden start to blossom over Virginia and parts of northeast North Carolina. So what's happening here, these blue specks over eastern Virginia are those storms developing ahead of the main line, and then further to the west, you're starting to see the probability basically along the line. So the probability for strong tornadoes really starts to increase by about 1 o'clock along the line of storms and out ahead of the line of storms, and that's what you're seeing there. Stepping it ahead to 2 o'clock, you really see that probability starting to increase, again, really across the entire area, including northeast North Carolina. So as storms are developing ahead of the line, they could start to spin, and the line itself may have embedded storms that are actually spinning. This is 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Monday. The probability starts to increase even more by 3 o'clock. So again, the main line of storms here, where you're seeing this line of green, basically west of I-95, but the storms out ahead, the probabilities, the significant tornado parameter, again, is really starting to shoot up. The probability of basically these high values. That lingers in until about, let's say, 4 o'clock across most of the area. You get into about, let's say, about 5 o'clock. Still really good probabilities here. Suggest the threat could be decreasing, but by 5 o'clock we could still be getting into a lot of really widespread severe weather and potentially strong tornadoes. This is getting us into now about 6 o'clock, so still a pretty significant threat there of probability of strong tornadoes. And really it doesn't go away until you get, that's 8 o'clock in the evening there. And then by about, I'd say 9 o'clock, the threat will kind of maybe still be lingering over northeast North Carolina, far eastern Virginia. It's just going to be a matter of how fast that line of storms moves east. But I'll move this through time, and you can kind of see this whole thing. Let me go back to the probability of 3. You really kind of see how this whole thing evolves from 8 a.m. This is actually taking us until about noon. Here's 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4, 5. This is 6, 7, and then 8. So really significant probabilities here of seeing maybe some really potentially a lot of strong tornadoes. And that's why we're in that level. Part of the reason we're in that level 4 risk, because of this tornado threat combined with the extreme severe damaging wind threat. We'll update this again tomorrow morning. We'll do another live briefing on Monday morning to kind of give folks an idea of trying to dial this in a little bit more. Rainfall amounts, it's going to be moving pretty quick, maybe a quick ½ inch to an inch. Some places might be able to pick up more than that, where you have some multiple rounds of storms, especially I'd say east of I-95, but not going to be a big heavy rain flooding event. I'm just going to mention that behind this front, it's a very powerful front, and so temperatures basically go from the 70s on Monday to highs only in the 40s for Tuesday and Wednesday, and really a hard freeze. I mean, temperatures well into the mid to upper 20s by the time you get into Wednesday morning. It's just a really, really big cold shot of air for this time of year. Getting into the marine side of things, we have extended the gale warnings now to cover all of the Chesapeake Bay and coastal waters. We're going to have those really strong southerly winds picking up later tonight, and especially on Monday ahead of that front when the things start mixing. Things are going to get very, very gusty, and probably going to see a lot of gusts to around, I'd say, 35 to 40 knots out of the south and southwest ahead of that front across all the waters. So you look at the day-by-day forecast across the area. The orange represents small craft advisories today, but then the red here are the gale conditions. The gale conditions we're forecasting really for the entire bay and all the coastal waters really for most of Monday. And we still have small craft advisory conditions on Tuesday with the west-northwest wind behind the front, and then things improve a little bit for Wednesday and Thursday. So these are kind of looking at just some of the environmental winds. This is outside of the storms. But generally, a lot of widespread gusts, I'd say right around, 35 to 40 knots, maybe even 45 knots. And this is just environmental wind. This is not with the storms. The storms will produce much higher wind, potentially well in excess of 50 knots. So be aware of that as that line of storms comes through. Going to be some very intense winds for all of the waters, including the rivers. Really start to see those gusty winds picking up. I'd say once we get some good heating going after 9, and especially by noon, the atmosphere is really going to start mixing, and we're going to see a lot of those gusts, anywhere from 35 to maybe even a little over 40 knots across all of the bay and the coastal waters. So this is just looking at the probabilities. The middle here is a probability of seeing gale conditions. So areas in orange have at least a medium probability. Area in red is a very high probability. And yellow is a lower probability, but still a probability that we're going to see gales. So again, this is with kind of that south to southwest wind. And it is going to push the water north, and we're going to have to watch the tides here over parts of the middle and upper bay, like towards Tangier, Crisfield, Bishop's Head, Cambridge, Louisetta. But it looks like the strongest winds may be occurring kind of during right around low tide. So we don't think we're going to have any tidal issues in the upper bay as that south wind pushes the water north. Just something we'll have to watch out for. We're keeping an eye on it, but we're not expecting any issues as of right now. And this is just showing you those sustained winds really everywhere, picking up pretty good by about noon, and especially during the afternoon with those gusts picking up between 9 and noon, getting a lot of widespread gusts here to anywhere from 30 to 40 knots, depending on where you are. And again, that's that south wind. And eventually the winds, the front comes through sometime right around 9 o'clock, maybe right after 9 o'clock, the front comes through. Winds go west and northwest, and not quite as strong behind the front. So we're not looking at gales right now behind the front, but we are looking at gales kind of right ahead and right along the front. And again, when that line of storms comes through, expect maybe some widespread winds of 50 knots or greater. And for those, we will be issuing special marine warnings to make sure folks know that the extreme windstorms are actually moving across the rivers, the bay, and the coastal waters. Wave heights with those increasing southerly winds build up pretty quickly, from about 3 to 4 today, upwards of anywhere from 6 to 10, maybe even up to 12 feet as you get east of Ocean City. So the waves are going to build up pretty quickly with those increasing southerly winds really late tonight and especially on Monday. So our significant wave height out there on the bay is going to be anywhere from about, I'd say, 4 to maybe 6 feet or so with that real strong south wind. And then on the coastal waters, anywhere from about 7 to 10 feet. But there could be some 10 to 12 footers out there, especially when that south wind really gets cranking late in the day. And the northern waters, probably closer to running to 10 to 12 feet, and maybe some waves up there 15 feet plus when you get east of Ocean City with that really strong southerly wind, because it's going to blow really all day on Monday ahead of that front. So that is all we have for this briefing. Again, we'll have another severe briefing here on Monday. It would be a live briefing, and we'll also be recording it at that time.